1.
You're about to hear the revolution in talk radio. Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano. And today we are pleased that Mr. Hugh Traulsen has agreed to be our guest to discuss the troubling concept of converting our police force to an armed force. Mr. Traulsen's motives are altruistic, and he is simply trying to make the world a better place, and we applaud him for that. His background has been varied and interesting. He's been responsible for whistleblowing a complaint which resulted in a high-placed political figure being displaced, and he accomplished this through lodging a complaint through the Wall Street Journal, of all places. To his credit, he has a poem in the Ronald Reagan Library. I don't. I wish I had a poem in the library of Ronald Reagan. Has received a letter from President Obama. I get one every year. It's called a tax statement that I owe money, and but that's another story. And he's also well known in numerous social and media circles. Please feel free to call during our show, 646-652-4620, to participate in this discussion. And remember, if you do call in, press the 1 button so that we'll know that you want to make a comment or ask a question on the air. Mr. Traulsen, thank you very much for being on our show.
Good morning, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to come into contact with you. I love the title Liberty Talk Radio, because if you don't have liberty, what do you have in your life? And that's right. What we're losing, and we have to get back. Yeah. And I think all your efforts will be rewarded, if not in this life, in the next life. We all are spiritual beings. You can't deny that. Otherwise, tell me how you created yourself. So focus on that and understand that as we come into the physical realm, we're going to eventually go back into spirit. 100 years is like the blink of an eye in terms of eternity. I believe that we're all fully accountable for everything we do here. So again, focus on that. What are you doing with your life? If you're going to think of God as someone who's a Santa Claus and doesn't give you things when you ask for them, no, that's not really what it's all about. It's you understanding that you were made in God's image, and when you get your heart to God resonance straight, anything is possible. So let's see what we can do through this show to open minds in the right way, to not have people being controlled, but having them tap into their own unlimited creativity, which we all have, and bring solutions, not just through conversation, but through peaceful, loving action based on agape love.
Yes, you know, what you say, of course, I agree with you. You know, because if I created myself, my eyes would probably be on my toes. You know, they're screwed up that much. But you're absolutely correct. You know, and it's unfortunate, Mr. Traulsen, that what we have today is we have people arguing about different precepts of certain religions, and they go to war to kill each other because they disagree in their definition of God. And I like to neutralize that entire situation by saying, yes, we know there is something, but we are basically, as humans, incapable of grasping the true concept of God. But we must act as such. We must act godly, if you will, even if we don't agree and we do not understand, fully comprehend the concept of God. That's almost immaterial. Those are just words, but it's the actions that count. And the problem we have today, in my opinion, is we have a lot of words, but we don't have enough action.
Well, that's exactly right, Joe, and that's where I'm standing in my own truth as a way shower. I've had a very bizarre life. I'd like to direct people to just Google my name, and you have it on the show page, but I'll spell it for those who may not see the show page. It's Hugh, H-U-G-H. The last name is Traulsen, spelled T like Tom, R-A-U-L-S-E-N like Nancy. And there's a big website after my name. If you look for the words Synchro, S-Y-N-C-H-R-O, Mystic, M-Y-S-T-I-C, Encounters, you'll find extensive PDF file documents, links, and an interview. And we can touch on some of those things, but I want to get into the main area that you put for the title of the show in a few minutes, but I just want to keep this spirituality going for a little bit longer, because I was raised Catholic, but I'm not a practicing Catholic at this point. I'm a spiritual person, and the reason I am is because when I've reached out to my church, it's never been there for me. And also, there are 4 things that I want to bring to people's attention. And again, this is my own summation based on my own personal investigations. 4 main areas that are controlling us are mainstream media, big government, big business, and religion. So take each person listening, investigate yourself, and you'll probably, if you have good enough common sense, come to the same conclusion that I have. So how do we offset that? How do we change that? How do we see who's controlling us and why? You had a guest which actually caused me to find you, James Perloff. He explained it beautifully. I think his book is titled Truth is a Lonely Warrior.
Right.
Well, if that's what I am, a lonely warrior, then again, I'm standing on my truth. And I am a Vietnam-era veteran. I'm tired of wars because these wars are contrived. And that's, again, what Mr. Perloff points out so beautifully. So I would serve my country, and I will defend my country with my life to preserve what the freedoms and liberties and justice is based on. But again, that is being eroded and compromised, and that's what I'm looking to reverse through this show. So people should just, again, Google my name, see who I am, and after this show, I hope that I will be able to follow up with you, Joe. I have a business partner who is a true American hero, who's a former Special Ops Green Beret captain from the Vietnam War. He's an expert in the law of attraction with 3 doctorates. He's a clinical psychologist for over 40 years, has a doctorate in religion, a doctorate in theology, a Bible expert, an expert in the law of attraction. In his background, he was former internal affairs police for the whole state of Florida for about 8 years.
Wow.
And his father was a New York federal judge. And my partner's paid his own college tuition. He had a rock and roll band, and he had a contract with Columbia Records and actually performed at Woodstock. So what you're finding is a resource that has no limits and unbelievable power. But we're not looking to be heroes. We're looking to change the world by bringing love into the forefront in all areas, empowering individuals, nonprofits, and companies, and letting God work everything out. That's how it should be brought forth, that God is in charge of everything. These leaders that we have, you may not agree with them, but pray for them, because you don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes. But prayer is an action, and it's a very powerful action. So that's another thing that people are not doing. And I say to people, especially those who said, well, I wish I could do more. I'm very spiritual and loving, but at least say a prayer. Do something. Don't just say that you're looking for excuses on why you can't do something. If you can't say a prayer, then we're lost.
Right. Well, I have to correct you in one area. You see, God checks with my wife before he does anything.
Well, again, that's beautiful, because I am committed to empowering women. My wife was a total earth angel to me for 35 and a half years, and she blessed me with the lesson that we all incarnate to learn, the lesson of unconditional love, which I can't thank her enough for.
Right.
You'll actually see a picture of her on her wedding day on a blog. The word creativity 777.com, and she actually looks to me like a blonde version of Princess Kate, which is interesting too. And I just want to give a website, since I touched on that with you. This is a website associated to the church I was married in. It's the letters S, M like Michael, WA.org. And when people go to that website, be sure to click on and look at the miraculous photos. That is going to be a real eye-opener for people, too. They're quite bizarre, and to this day, when they have vigils and people take pictures, unexplained images appear on the photographs. So there are other dimensions which people aren't even aware of. So the veil is thinning, and all these things that are happening in Mother Nature, the chaos, that all can be reversed again if we just all start appreciating each other and not hating each other and manipulating each other, but doing basically what Jesus Christ said. That's where I resonate. I leave anybody up to their own belief systems. Jesus never hit anybody over the head with a club and said, follow me. He said, follow me. He knows. He gave you free will, and he even let Doubting Thomas put his hands in his wounds when there was a question. But Jesus, in essence, he came to do away with the laws of the Old Testament, which he did beautifully by sacrificing his life for all of mankind. He said two things: put God first always, and love your neighbors yourself. If people are doing that properly in their life, the wars will stop immediately.
Oh, absolutely.
So
yeah. Now, Mr. Traulsen, you wanted to touch upon the police state and how at one time it was to serve and protect. You know, on the police cars, we used to see that. You know, they say the city police, to serve and protect. I noticed that in my town, they took that off, to serve and protect. It's no longer on the police cars. And I haven't seen it on cars, police cars in other cities. It seems that they're walking away from that. And I'm surprised they took that off, because that was their mission, and they're trying to still foster that same facade of to serve and protect. And now it's I forgot what they replaced it with. It's to I don't want to guess because I'll say the wrong thing, but it wasn't those words. And it really troubled me when I saw that a few weeks ago, where the police cars no longer used that terminology. Why don't you kick off that conversation regarding about our police force, what it was, where it's going, and how we can change it?
I'm going to do that with this statement that, again, I have all these things that come to me in unusual ways, and this came to me this morning. I'm not sure if it was on television or I saw it on the internet, but just this one sentence. Let's get this resonating in people's minds. Who polices the police when they do wrong? So really resonate with that sentence. And now let's bring it into my being a way shower, standing on my truth. And I've had some personal experiences in what you're talking about, because I grew up, I'm 70 years old now, and I actually was a contract security officer. I happened to get into that career field when I became sort of disabled with back problems and things, and I have been asked at numerous times to become a police officer. But I know me, and that's what, again, it comes to personal responsibility on both sides of the fence, the civilians and the police. They have to know themselves, and I respect the police, and I support the police, but what I do not support is Gestapo police or corrupt police. And there's enough of that out there now that has to be corrected, because it's getting way out of hand when these incidents flare up. And there's other ways that can, with today's technologies, that the police can be more transparent if they want that cooperation from the community. It's not, well, we'll throw a coffee block party and we'll show you all our stuff or whatever, and we want everything that you can tell us, but we won't give you any feedback unless we feel like it. That's not the way to go.
Right.
So why I say this is, And also on the documents on Hugh Traulsen synchronistic encounters, you'll see where I actually worked as a contract security officer for about 10 years at Union Carbide's headquarters in Danbury, Connecticut, and I was actually there when the gas leak in Bhopal, India happened. They were getting bomb threats every 2 or 3 minutes and dumping 3,000 executives out of the building until we figured out, we had to monitor the tape recordings of anything coming in and establish better security procedures. But nothing is perfect. And again, why are we having tanks coming into police departments? That's overkill. I mean, are we preparing for something that we don't know about along the lines of what James Perloff is suggesting? So let's start reversing that right now by cooperating with all the police departments in a way that they can bring forth the transparency that they say they have, but let's them put it in practice. So here I'm going to get a little personal, because my life was saved by the police on March 16, 2007. I was working on Long Island as a contract security officer. I was in a patrol car. I couldn't breathe. I called my daughter. She said, "Dad, call the police." They came, they got me on oxygen and got me to the hospital. So they, in essence, saved my life. I became disabled as a result of the entire incident. I wound up having COPD and a host of other things. I'm currently in the Veterans Healthcare System, and I relocated after going through rehab down to Virginia. I was in a senior independent apartment building, excuse me, on January 3rd, 2009. I was arrested from my bed. I didn't know what the heck was going on.
You were arrested from your bed? You said you were arrested from your bed?
And this information is actually sitting in the White House. You're going to see a 48-page PDF file on that big site, Hugh Traulsen Synchronistic Encounters, that has number 48, a copy of a letter from the former Henrico County Police Chief, Colonel Henry Stanley, Jr., and his letter to me was dated August 19th, 2009. The letter states, "Dear Mr. Traulsen, I am in receipt of a copy of a letter addressed to you in response to your letter to the White House. This letter contained your handwritten note addressed to me regarding your arrest in Henrico County. It appears that this case was heard in Henrico General District Court, whereupon you were found to be not guilty. I am not aware of any misunderstandings within the division of the police and consider this case closed. We wish you well in your endeavors." I responded to that letter and said I was copying the president with all kinds of documents, and the only reason I got this letter because it made him nervous enough to know that the president was aware of who I am and whatever. So he's looking more or less. What the police do is they cover their A. They're afraid of lawsuits, but if the lawsuits are justified, then they have to have that, because if you're going to treat your people and your police force as pedophile priests and move them around and cover this stuff up, it's only going to fester and manifest in the ways that will cause total chaos. So we have to have that balance there. And I'm inviting anybody to listen to this, who listens to this show. Let's find out about this case that he's saying was heard in Henrico General District Court. There was never a case. The prosecutor came to my attorney, who then came to me, and my attorney said the prosecutor will immediately drop the arrest and all charges, but to save face, I had to agree to certain conditions. I was arrested from my bed, accused of stalking and having two women in fear of death. It was total BS. Yeah. One of these women was a reverend type who actually perjured herself on paper, which I still have recourse for because there's no statutes of limitation on perjury in Virginia. I'm not pursuing it for vengeance, but I don't have the resources to pull it together yet, and I have contacted the prosecutor's office. They won't do anything because, again, They're totally fearful of a lawsuit. They totally violated my civil rights. Right. And that will come out. And it was done, the whole thing, when I was able to piece this together over time, I was set up by a corrupt police sergeant. Now, he's dead, as well as some other gossipers who set me up in this scheme. So there's the karma coming back. There's the spirituality coming into play. There's showing where your faith is, not looking for vengeance, but letting go and letting God, because God is far more creative than me, and he'll take care of it in its own way, in its own time. So the thing is not to give in to being controlled and manipulated, but just to leave yourself in God's hands when you can't handle things, and to pray constantly for help and guidance. So, and along these lines too, when the police came, I didn't argue. I cooperated fully. And there was a woman police officer and two male policemen. The woman police officer cuffed me and drove me over to the precinct, and on the way over, she said, you know, I'm very experienced in these kinds of cases. My stomach went right into knots. And why would she even say something like that? Yeah. So obviously, I have enough information to show, I think, how this whole thing went down. I'm looking to have it eventually developed into a blockbuster book and movie, which I don't want a penny of, but I want the money that I would have for my portion to go to help women that have been abused, because that's where some of this is coming from.
Good for you.
And that's where we have to get going back to women and they've been suppressed for far too long.
Well, you know, let me give you my just recap and experience with the police force. I hear all sorts of horror stories, and some of them are true. You know, some of them are true. Some may be exaggerated, and some may be even too mild. Maybe they're just being too kind. But my overall experience is I've known dozens of people in the police force. Still do. I have people in my family in the police force, friends of family and whatever. And I've been stopped by the police on several occasions, you know, for going over the speed limit and stuff like that. And I'll be honest with you, I've never had a problem. I find them very engaging, very understanding, very forgiving. And my experience, I don't know what it is. Am I such a nice guy or something that they say, oh, this guy's such a nice guy, we have to let him go? I don't understand it. I mean, I was speeding this not too long ago. I was just going over, 10 miles over the speed. Didn't realize I was going along, and a cop car just, put the lights on, and I said, oh, my goodness, I'm going too fast. I just pulled over, rolled down the way. I expected to get a ticket, didn't argue with him. I said, I'm sorry, officer, just by not thinking. I gave him my, my everything. He said, all right, just be careful. I mean, basically, that's been my experience. I mean, I have never had an occasion where a cop was rude, dragged me out of the car, kicked the heck out of me, put handcuffs on me. In fact, I have to, and I say this with all sincerity, I have nothing to gain or lose by saying this, is that I think the cops were too lenient with me. and so my experience, why is my experience so different than what you see on television all the time?
You're saying it exactly. You gave it away because you are polite and cooperative. And if people will just do that, they'll find they have a much easier time with the police. Take personal responsibility. I'm not going to say that they should be giving you citations for what you have admitted, because the statutes of limitations hopefully have expired. But yeah, you will get a break once in a while, because these people are professionals. They're trained. And they want the respect, and they should be given the respect.
Yes.
They're servants, civil servants, but they're not doormats. They're out there, and more people should really go out or interact with their local police to see what they have to go through on a daily basis. As you are being pulled over, this guy might have just come from a murder scene where it was gruesome, and how does that affect the emotions?
Right.
It's a very tough job.
Oh, it is.
And that's why, again, I was a contract security officer as opposed to being a police officer, even though I was asked many times to join a police force. I was military trained. And if I take my gun out and point it at you, if you don't do exactly what I tell you, I'm not going to take any chances.
Right.
Because how many police officers on a traffic stop, as you're describing, have walked up to a car and lost their lives?
Right.
So it's a very, very difficult job, and if the police are giving the kind of respect and cooperation they're asking for, then they should be also forthcoming with more transparency to truly interact with the public in the right way. And if they have rotten apples, get them out of there, prosecute them, because we don't need the code blue or whatever it is, just covering it up again like pedophile priests. And I want to go back again to this Henrico County police situation. I called December of 2014. There's a acting chief now. His name is Douglas A. Middleton. I spoke with his secretary. I said, look, I'll sign documents. I just want to have my whole situation come forth as a teaching point. I'll sign documents. I'm not looking to sue anybody, but there's no response. So again, if they want transparency, and he has stated that they're all about transparency, come on, show me where it is.
That's right.
But, are you just saying words, or are you going to take some action?
Right.
So there again, this radio show, I hope that you'll bring it to your police friends and have anybody come back, because I want them to come to my partner, who is unbelievable, and he trained many police over the years, and the things that we're doing now, we can empower communities in ways that aren't even being considered yet with existing technologies.
Yeah. I'd like your opinion in a couple of areas, Mr. Traulsen. First, if I was a policeman, and I come from Harlem, the streets of Harlem, New York, and I lived in the Bronx, and I hung around some of the most god-awful neighborhoods. I mean, tough neighborhoods, but that was sort of pre-drug era. And when drugs start coming in, things changed radically. And I can understand where a police officer, if first of all, they don't go on foot anymore because it's too dangerous. They do it via squad cars now, and which makes it more ominous and more imposing, I guess. But when you're in those neighborhoods and you see someone, they can look very normal. But boy, if they're a drug dealer or on drugs, you're toast. You're gone. And so, do you think that the drug, but not so much drugs, because drugs have always been around. They've been around since the beginning of time. Do you think that the government program of the war on drugs, that's made drugs made it so lucrative to be in the drug business? I mean, if you can't get a job, peddle drugs, you'll make big money. I mean, being in that situation, did the war on drugs sort of contribute to this danger that we have today, to this police action where policemen are always on guard because they don't know if this guy is straight or he's, totally wiped out on drugs and can pull a gun out and shoot everyone in front of him and not even know he's doing it?
Well, again, you're bringing up an extremely interesting point, because it's not just drugs. We have a huge problem with mental illness of people running around that used to be housed in institutions, which they just took them out and dumped them on the streets today. So a police officer is only as good as his training, too, and his emotions. He's got to keep them all in check. There's so many facets to what a policeman has to do, because it's instantaneous decisions that he has to make.
Right.
And there again, that's where I want to bring my partner in, because he is a total professional and has taught the police. But I do want to say, related to the drugs, this is getting into areas, too, of James Perloff's investigations. There's a lot of black ops money that has funneled drugs into this country, and there I want to follow these money trails back and see where the transparency is there, because again, it gets into corruption into the police too, in a lot of police departments with drugs. There's evidence that disappears out of the evidence room related to drugs and money and all kinds of stuff. So there again, it's a tough nut to crack, but it can be cracked if we all have common sense and work on the same page. But I'm going to bring you back to a time that is in the New York area that was a very interesting movie. It was called Fort Apache with Paul Newman.
Fort Apache, the Bronx. That's my old neighborhood. That was the 43rd precinct, I think, 41st or 43rd precinct. Yeah, Fort Apache, the Bronx. I know the area. I used to hang around there.
Well, I love the scene with Paul Newman when they came up on an insane guy with a machete in the street, and he's looking at top heads or whatever. And Paul Newman comes in front of him and starts acting even more bizarre than he was, while his partner snuck up behind him and hit him over the head with a billy club. So,
well, I want to tell you something about that movie. That movie was a total misrepresentation of the book. I read the book and then saw the movie. And the movie was more about Paul Newman and that registered nurse that he was in love with. There was a love affair going on and stuff like that, and then he was a cop in the street. But Fort Apache, the Bronx, was the theme of that book was that when you were a police officer, the way they punished you if you didn't follow orders or if you did the wrong thing or whatever, you got transferred. And I think it was the 41st or the 43rd precinct. I'm not sure which one it was, but you went to the 43rd precinct. And that's where you served your time. The reason why you served your time there is because it was such a god-awful precinct. In fact, they called it Fort Apache because they would barricade the front door because people would try to break in. I mean, the police officers were in a fort, and it was a sort of a brownstone building, but it was a fortress because police never knew what was going to happen, and they were always on guard. Well, what the upshot of the whole thing was, during that time, because of rent control, most of the landlords were burning down their own buildings because they couldn't afford to hold them. And there was articles in the Wall Street Journal, in fact, 3 in a row in the Wall Street Journal, front page, and it was called "The Bronx is Burning." If you remember, if you ever watched when the World Series was played in old Yankee Stadium, and they have the blimp, taking shots of the overhead shots of the stadium, you always saw fires in the background, and those were those old tenements in the 43rd precinct burning. And as a result, people moved out because the places were burnt out, and Fort Apache turned out to be about the calmest place to be. And I mean, it was like a vacation because there was no one living there. Anyway, it had a whole historical background, and that movie didn't touch on that whatsoever. My point being is that at one point, the 43rd was such a horrible place to work. I mean, you couldn't walk the streets. It was really that tough, and it was primarily a Puerto Rican, black, white, mixed neighborhood, and there were always gang wars going on. And then when drugs came in, it got exponentially worse. But anyway, I'm sorry for the diatribe, but I don't mean to take your time. But there was an excellent case of where the police literally had to barricade themselves to protect themselves from the people. It was the exact opposite, and no one knows that, and that movie did not bear that out.
Well, I'm glad that you brought all that out, because again, that shows that the police, how difficult it can be for them. So they need the support of the public, and we should give them that, because they're our protectors. So, that's where, again, if it's corrupt or Gestapo, we don't want that. We've seen what that has done in Germany and Russia and other places, and the corruption in Mexico. I mean, the police there will probably, the prison guards probably helped that guy escape, like upstate New York too. You saw that recent fiasco. So it's again personal responsibility for each individual. And if you're a police officer or whatever, if that's your career, keep getting more and more training with, especially the new technologies. There must be something better than guns in certain situations. But again, if somebody has a gun and they're pointing at you and they're firing it, even if it was like one of these plastic bullet things, like that movie theater incident. The police have no choice. They don't know what's
absolutely.
next.
Yeah.
They're going to take.
Right. Well, we need to, Mr. Traulsen, excuse me, I hate to interrupt, but we need to, we're a little bit late. We need to stop a station identification. Could you hold on for about a minute until we have station identification, and we'll be right back with you, okay?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Folks, hang on. Just listen to our commercial, our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Political talk derived from a historical perspective. Not always palatable, but good food for thought. Pure libertarian talk with host Joe Cristiano. LibertyTalkRadio.com.
Express Test is your go-to company for on-site occupational health testing services. That's right, we said on-site. That means we will meet you at your facility for a free health and occupational safety consultation. Express Test specializes in hearing conservation, respiratory protection, and employee safety. We can help you establish viable programs tailored to your business and employee needs. For your free consultation, call 918-743-2929 or visit us at expresstest.com. That's 918-743-2929 or expresstest.com. Do you find yourself asking, what did you say? Aaron Cristiano of Ranch Acres Audiology has over 25 years of experience helping patients just like you.
Hearing requires conservation. We need to be aware and we need to be responsible for our own hearing health.
Understand more with a little help from Branch Acres Audiology. Call 918-749-7711. That's 918-749-7711 to learn more. We'd like to thank attorney Constance Squires for her support of Liberty Talk Radio. If you want a comprehensive way to affordably avoid legal issues, call Constance Squires. For a free consultation, call 918-254-9283 or go online at isthyWillDone.com.
Steve Harden of the Harden Insurance Agency has over 30 years of experience designing family insurance protection, including retirement planning. Call 918-488-0024 or go to hardenagency.com and request a free in-depth estate and retirement evaluation. We look forward to earning your trust and helping you meet your life goals.
This isn't your typical talk radio show. This is Liberty. Liberty Talk Radio.
Folks, you're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano. We're pleased to have with us Mr. Hugh Traulsen as our guest. We're talking about the police state, or the upcoming police state, it seems, and we can see what we can do about it. Mr. Traulsen, why do you think that the police departments are turning more militaristic?
Because of the overall situation in the world, and again, I keep referring back to James Perloff. I hope people will really at least go on YouTube and see what he's saying. Now, where he's actually documenting what has been going on, I'm looking to reverse, not document. So what we're doing with this conversation is reversing the things that he's showing what has been happening. Because if we keep feeding into the negativity, there's going to be more negativity to come. The law of attraction is very simple and basic. What you put out, you get back. So what are you feeding your mind? It's good to know what James Perloff is talking about, but you also have the solutions if you will open your mind to that. And that's what I'm looking to do with you, Joe, after the show. And for the future, we will get some things going that you can bring right into your community. I'll make you more aware of my business partner, and we can shine the light where it needs to be shined to root out the corruption globally. That's the biggest problem. That's what we really have to be looking at. And also, the article that I was written up in the Wall Street Journal article beautifully describes how special interests and lobbyists have totally corrupted Washington. This article was published in 1983. It was before Ross Perot talked about it back then. So that's where we really...
There's a name from the past. Oh, Mr. Traulsen, we do have a caller on line one. Could we take that call now?
Sure.
Okay. Caller line one, you're on the air.
Hi, Hugh and Joe. I've been enjoying this show And Joe, you alluded to something earlier that I wanted to get Hugh's take on, and that is, the serve and protect, kind of coming off the police cars, and then I saw some posts on Facebook recently where it showed the sheriffs down in some place in New Mexico or Arizona where they quit wearing that black, stormtrooper outfits, and they started going back to what they used to wear when they, patrolled their county, and they had their blue jeans and a shirt on and a cowboy hat,
I like that, yeah.
They were just real guys, real guys in the community. And then I also recently talked to, and my son's father-in-law, he's a reserve cop, and we've had a big stink. I don't know if you've heard about what we had here in this area, and about a older reserve cop accidentally shooting somebody,
right,
and now they want to get rid of the program, and and I think that you're absolutely right about transparency, and I just want to get your take on just the way they look. Okay, it's unbelievable. It's intimidating. It's not conducive to a relationship with citizens and police. Barney and they make fun of policemen like Barney Fife, but really I guess the goal is to be Andy Griffith. A guy that's tough on crime, but also a human being.
Well,
so I want to get your take on just the dress.
All right, Mr. Traulsen, what do you think?
Well, I think that there has to be. It's known as a deterrent to show that when you see security forces or police in the community, it deters crime to a certain degree. But I understand completely what the gentleman calling is talking about, because I actually prefer the incognito type police. And I've done both, because I used to have to wear a uniform, and I had a P.O. box I would check in uniform, and one of the security guards where I worked went to a bar in uniform during lunchtime, got drunk, went out and pulled his pants down in front of some women on the street.
Oh.
So that really gave a great image for me to go check my P.O. box in uniform. I dreaded wearing it. But on the other hand, like some of these shows that you see, and I'm going to go back again in time. There's a beautiful show called The Equalizer. Ed Woodard or something. That's the kind of police I love. They flash their badge, they tell you who they are, and wow, where'd this guy come from? He's got me dead to rights. So we have the cameras, and that's good for both sides too, but everything is subject to interpretation and manipulation. So that's where, especially in these situations with the police, there has to be independent investigations too.
Yeah, I'm going to make a comment. I'm going to make a comment that it's going to blanket the whole conversation, I think. And Caller, stay on the air, and I like your comments as well. We would not be in the mess that we are in if it had not been for the breakdown of the family. You take we had some of the campaign people from Ben Carson's Dr. Ben Carson's campaign. He's running for president, as you know. And he comes from the inner city part of Detroit, always in trouble. And what his mother did said, "You're getting off the streets. You if you want to live in this house, you have to read 2 books a week." So he spent his time going to the library, and he went from a troubled student being thrown out of school to graduating with honors, and now is a world-renowned neurosurgeon. There, the family corrected the situation, and I don't think his father was living with them. I'm not sure, but I know his mother was, and his mother took reign and made the situation correct. Today we try to have society, whatever that's supposed to mean, try to correct the family, which or correct the behavior of family, especially the children, and it doesn't work, and it's resulted in chaos. if I made the blanket statement saying the reason why we have the problem with crime and the police being so fidgety about, walking the streets of inner cities is because of a breakdown of the family, that's where it all starts. How far off do you think I would be?
I think you're right on target, and again, related to family too, we can't control with all the technologies that we have today, and I say that in particular related to the Boston police, I don't know what his rank is, that turned his son in, who was getting ready to do some kind of a bombing or whatever. I don't know if I don't know the name of the police officer or whatever, but there again, I'm sure he was a good father, and the son just got off track with the crazy technologies that are available. So we have to have that communication. I grew up before a lot of these technologies were in place. We had the telephone and TV, and we had a Sunday dinner where we sat around the table and we conversed as a family. We weren't allowed to leave the table until we were excused.
Yeah, right.
And going back to those memories, it didn't hurt. If anything, it probably instilled some good values. So if you're giving devices to your kids to just not take personal responsibility and making sure that they're understanding certain basic concepts, they're going to get into the wrong peer group or get into something that you're not even aware of, and they're not even aware of what they're getting into, possibly some kind of online pedophile or whatever. So, yeah, you're exactly right, and that's what we have to bring back is the family. Now, again, I have my own personal opinions and stuff, too. I'm not going to judge the gays and lesbians or whatever, but they've sort of taken the term marriage and really thrown it down in the mud, so to speak. I'm all for them to have every right that they deserve, but why they have to compromise the term marriage? Why can't it be?
Yeah, we can call it something else. Yeah, right. It's a matter of semantics there. Caller, are you still on the air?
Yes, I am. I'm enjoying listening.
Yeah, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think the family is a thing of the past. The family, I think, has been more fostered to being even controlled by the state and manipulated by the state, just because of certain government programs that are just corrupted, and people giving handouts. And we had recently a guy that is a state representative here, and he made a comment about welfare, and oh my gosh, he was just crucified over it. He said that our interior department that handles all the conservation of animals and things like that have signs up everywhere: do not feed the animals, because if you feed animals, they become dependent,
right,
and they come to humans for food, and it's counterproductive to the culture of animals,
right,
to do that. Well, we're no better than animals. We're human beings, but we're still animals.
That's correct.
And when you do something for somebody constantly over and over and over, you make them dependent upon you. And what happens? They're harmed from it. It actually hurts their productivity or their ability to use their instincts to succeed in life. And just like an animal would get sorry at hunting food. And he was just, oh, you're talking about welfare recipients being animals. Oh, how dare you? No,
right.
He's not calling them that. They just twisted it.
That's right.
And that's one of our problems. The welfare system has become the father and provider in these homes.
Right.
And we have, and so you don't need the old man. Why listen to him? Any wisdom he has, we don't need to sit around a table and listen to you, old fart. I mean, that's where we've gone, and I think you're absolutely right. Your family, you said, Hugh, sat down and you didn't leave the table. You had to listen. My family, we're churchgoers, and I've always told my kids, hey, it's time to sit down for an hour, shut your face, and listen to somebody else. If you do that 1 hour a week, it's not going to kill you, okay?
Yeah, but during that time they could be downloading an app or something. What's the matter with you?
Yeah, they could be downloading that, or they could be used to be fishing. They could go fishing. Years ago. But it's important that people just shut up and listen to somebody else without, and that's what I like about talk radio. You can sit and listen to everyone's experiences and everyone's opinions based upon real life situations, and that's what happens around the family table. And I'm glad you brought that up, Hugh, because the policemen have a lot better ability to chase after criminals if they weren't chasing after a bunch of wild, undisciplined people. They're maybe not really hardened criminals, but they're a management problem. You're having to deal with people that are kooky, or people who are just arrogant, or people that are proud, full of pride, and they want to start an argument. That's why some of these people get killed in these arrests, because they're shouting at the police and they're not cooperating, and they've got a chip on their shoulder. Well,
but everyone's having that problem today. Not only the police department. Look at the school system. A friend of mine is a music teacher, and a couple of years ago, he was talking about when they had a Parents' Day where they the children, and I asked him how it went, and he says it was the most discouraging 2 days of his life. And I said, why was that? What did the parents say? He said, in 2 days, one parent showed up. So, I mean, you have a total breakdown of the family. You have a breakdown of the family because of, we have reliance on government for everything. And one of the most uplifting books that I have read recently, and you will not believe this when I say, you're going to think this is a joke, was about the Depression. It was about people living in middle America on farms during the Depression that had absolutely nothing. The theme of the entire book was that we had no money at all. I mean, we lived in houses that were just falling apart on the plains, but we had one another. And we sat down together, and we became closer together. We became closer and a tighter family, and we made it through the Depression. We had no money, but we always arranged a way to eat, and we ate together. That family made America strong. And then as soon as the government came in to alleviate the situation, it broke up the family. And now we can go back to the police department. I relate that. I can project that right out to where we see people in the street where unwed mothers having children, inner cities, on welfare. Then we have the war on drugs. The only way these kids can make any money is if they peddle in drugs. You have this vicious cycle, and it all comes back to the same thing. Don't feed the animals, so to speak. It's that same concept. Let families up themselves. Let them solidify and become the nucleus for society. And we have destroyed that nucleus through government programs. And Hugh, what do you think? Am I off the page or what?
No, you're right on target. And again, related to the family, with today's technologies, and this is where I want to follow up with you after the show. Imagine sitting around the dining room table again with your children, no devices on, discussing what their interests are, and then formulating a home-based business based on that child's interests, growing it to the point that by the time that child is ready for college, all the tuition might be paid for instead of having them go into debt for the rest of their lives. And maybe they might choose not to go to college because they're set in a career that you help provide.
That's right.
By being a good parent.
That's correct.
That's just one little thought.
Yeah. No, you're right. We don't, children go to school because they don't know what else to do. When my father came here from Italy back about 1930ish or so, and he started his own business, had absolutely no money at all, didn't speak the English, had but yet he started his own business. He was productive all his life. He eventually had a factory with 200 people working in that factory, and he owned it all himself. He unfortunately got very, very, very ill, and all of his money went to medical expenses and died broke, I'll be honest with you. And he was a hardworking man, and yet you don't hear those stories anymore. I mean, he never took a dime from anyone, and even during the times when he was struggling, he always helped other people out. What happened? That was America. What happened to America? I don't understand it. I disgust me when I see what's going on today. Oh, we have a phone call.
Yeah.
Whose phone is that?
Is that Hughes?
Nope, that's not me.
No, Hughes.
Oh, Hugh, is that your phone?
Oh, he got.
No, that's not mine.
Oh, okay. That's someone's phone. Okay. All right, we heard a phone ring.
Oh, it was Gary.
Oh, okay.
I just want to make it.
Yeah, okay.
If I may make a couple of more points
Sure.
before we run out of time. This is something, again, profound related to the title of your show. On July 7th, 2013, I was doing something that I learned from the indigenous. We haven't even gotten there yet. They're wonderful people. And I love this statement. It was an indigenous woman who said to a man that there are two wars waging in a man's heart. One is love, the other is hate. And the man said to the indigenous woman, which one wins? She said, the one that you give the most attention to. So resonate with that a little bit. But
that's right.
On July 7, 2013, in the afternoon, I was standing barefoot in the grass, and there's a website related to what I was doing. It's called Earthing, EARTHING.com. I noticed the Ashland police car, patrol car coming by. I waved. The window was tinted. I couldn't see in, so they passed by, and I noticed the police car make a couple of other passes. And then all of a sudden, a policewoman comes out of the car, walks over to me, and says, are you all right? I said, I'm perfectly fine. How are you? And then she started questioning me. Do you live in this building? I said, I most certainly do. Do you have your driver's license? I said, I don't have it on me, but I have it in my apartment if you want to go in and see it, whatever. So after about a minute and a half of conversation, she said, do you mind moving your hands from behind your back? Now all of a sudden in her mind I'm some kind of wacko terrorist threat, not bothering anybody, standing barefoot in the grass. So I moved my hands and showed her I'm not hiding anything from you. You're coming up and asking me questions. I'm cooperating. So we conversed a little bit further and spoke about the military. And she, oh, my father was in the Air Force and stuff. All of a sudden backup comes. She didn't call for backup. So this was evidently pre-planned somewhere.
Wow.
And then the police officer comes out and he looks at my slippers over near the fence. Are those yours? Yeah, now I'm some kind of a crazy shoe bomber that's going to blow up a metal fence. So you got me, boys. So what happened, I explained all this, what I was doing, gave them the site earthing.com, told them some of my background. I watched the two of them went over and sat side by side and talked for about 15 minutes and then departed. So I never said anything to the chief of police. I wanted to let things sit for a while, but now I brought it up December 2014 because I want to see how good the record keeping is. And I wanted to use it as a teaching point to have him come back to my business partner, who again was former internal police for the whole state of Florida. And the Ashland chief of police is Doug Goodman. And if you go on the Ashland, Virginia official website, there's a video of him, and it would be interesting to watch that and to give feedback to him, letting him know that this show is going all over the world. Because in the conversation, when I told him what had happened, at one point he says, it sounds like you're complaining about one of my officers. I said, I'm not complaining at all. I'm stating facts. And I will tell you this, there was a witness that I'm not going to identify that will vouch for everything that happened. Yeah. So he said, well, I'll get back to you in a few weeks. He has not come back to me yet. So again, talk about transparency, talk about cooperation. No, it's a one-way flow. That's got to change. So that's why I brought that example up, because that is a perfect example of Gestapo police. All I want to know at this point is what caused them to give me an interrogation when I was standing all by myself, barefoot in the grass, not bothering anybody, not chanting or doing an Indian dance, calling for thunder and rain to come down on people's heads.
I'm gonna make one comment, and I'm gonna give you the last minute to close things up. We have the police today, especially in the inner cities, driving around or walking around, mostly driving around, monitoring our youth and their behavior. The problem is that they're not supposed to be doing that. Their parents are supposed to be doing that, and they're not. I think it all starts from the breakdown of the family, and the breakdown of the family is a result of government intervention. And I think if we got rid of the government intervention, we'd have the solidification of the family, and the policeman can walk down the street with confidence and not feel like they're going to get killed with all these war on drugs, war on terror, war on everything, because the government creates more of these problems than it can ever solve. And I'll leave the last minute up to you.
Yeah, I want to bring something up, too, because I'm sort of a wayshow in different ways. If people will Google the power of one vote, there's a listing of how one vote affected things. One vote actually changed the language of German being chosen for America to English. One vote put Hitler into power. And along those lines, if you will Google my name, Hugh Traulsen, and put Old Dominion, it's going to bring you to a posting on a libertarian page related to the 2014 election in November, and I think you'll find that very insightful. And one last thing, before I came on the show today, there was a beautiful song that I saw on Good Morning America. I want to give this gentleman kudos. He's a black gentleman. His name is Big Sean, S-E-A-N. The title of the song, and it can be seen on YouTube, One Man Can Change the World. Okay. It all starts with you. So take personal responsibility, understand you're a spiritual being here to learn unconditional love. As you learn it, be a blessing to others, especially those who can't help themselves, and we'll get there. We'll get America back on track. And God bless everyone, and be safe, be well, and be a blessing to others. Thank you.
Hugh, thank you so much for being on Liberty Talk Radio. We certainly appreciate it. We hope to hear from you again, okay? Okay, folks, this is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends, but let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, as my wife would say, you are either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, folks, there is no middle ground. Until next time, this is Joe Cristiano. You've been listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well, stay tuned.